right, so our first lecture is going to be an overview of sort of what we're going to be studying all year. So we're going to talk a little bit about what chemistry is and the branches of chemistry, types of chemistry, and what we may be doing this year in chemistry. So let's start with a basic definition of chemistry. So chemistry is sometimes called the central science. It is the study of matter and the changes that matter undergoes. And it kind of I guess umbrellas over a lot of other things. So matter is anything that takes up space and has mass. Mass is very kind of like weight. We're going to talk more about matter in our next chapter, but it's the amount of matter that something contains. And so chemistry is going to be the study of the structure of that, but then also what kind of changes it goes through. So we could subdivide chemistry or any science really into pure and applied. So pure chemistry would be knowledge for its own sake. It's not directed towards a specific goal, whereas applied chemistry would be directed towards a practical application. So here are two examples. So the first one here, effects of a cancer drug on tumors. This would be applied chemistry. We are specifically trying to solve a problem. We are trying to treat tumors and cure cancer, and so we are studying this drug and how it works. So this would be applied. Types of minerals on the moon, this would be more pure chemistry. Now, could it become applied? Sure, we may discover a mineral that has some kind of great magnetism, and so we're going to use it to make stronger magnets, then it would become applied. But discovery is just sort of for the sake. Sometimes you guys would do in the lab, even though you really shouldn't, you might be doing some pure chemistry. You might say, well, we're supposed to mix this with that, but what if I mix it with this other thing? That's sort of like pure chemistry. You just kind of want to see what's going to happen. All right, so branches of chemistry. Now, there actually are more branches of chemistry than we are going to discuss, and some of these overlap each other as well. So keep that in mind that we're going to go through some general branches of chemistry, but this is not an exhaustive list. So one thing you can do is we can sort of split chemistry into organic and inorganic. So organic chemistry is specifically studying substances that contain carbon, carbon-based or hydrocarbon-based substances. So for example, this could include things like plastics, nylon. If you look at the picture here, you see nylon, and notice in the chemical structure of nylon here, sorry, let me get my pen tool, you can actually see all these carbons. It's actually hydrocarbons, carbon, hydrogen, carbon, lots of carbons. So nylon, like I said, the non-stick coatings on pans, things like that. Inorganic chemistry, on the other hand, is the study of things that don't contain carbon. So this might be looking at minerals, this might be looking at the elements. I would say that this year, we're going to spend a lot of our year talking about inorganic chemistry, because we're going to learn about the structure of elements. Protons, neutrons, and electrons. We're going to learn about the periodic table and trends on the periodic table and how a lot of these things combine in ionic and covalent bonds and things like that. And that's really focusing on inorganic chemistry. We're not going to focus much on carbon-containing compounds. We can further divide things. Analytical chemistry is specifically studying chemical components of samples. So if you discovered a brand new snake venom and you want to know, because it's not going to be necessarily a pure chemical, it's going to be maybe composed of many chemicals in that snake venom, that would be analytical chemistry. And analytical chemists would also look at things like, in this case, this might be an accelerants. So maybe there was a fire and they want to know, did somebody start this fire? And so they would run certain tests that would give us, if you notice here, whether or not, an accelerant was used and what kind of accelerant, was it gasoline? Was it alcohol? Like what was used to start the fire? So analytical chemistry, definitely breaking down substances and into their components. Biochemistry, we don't spend a lot of time in our class talking about it, but you actually hit on this in your biology classes because this has to do with processes and substances in living things specifically, like looking at how certain enzymes work, looking at hormones, looking at processes like cell respiration or photosynthesis. These would all be biochemical processes. All right, physical chemistry relates chemistry to physics. So when you think physical, don't think like physical fitness kind of thing, but think chemistry and physics. So this would be things like electricity. The picture here is showing a salt bridge, and you can actually see two metals, and they're basically creating an electrical current here. So this would be an example of physical chemistry. Also thermodynamics. If you think thermo, that's heat. So you could look at substances that absorb heat well, the conduction of heat, heat given off by substances reacting, things like that. Light, because we know that reactions produce light. We know electricity produces light. Kinetics, which is actually the rates that reactions happen at. So physical chemistry, definitely processes, physical processes. And again, think kind of chemistry and physics. All right, and our last thing here is matching. So we're going to match the type of chemistry based on the ones that we've covered to which one it goes with here. So first, development of a new nylon material that is lightweight and stain resistant. So I gave you the formula for nylon here, and the reason I did that is because that might be helpful. And notice in nylon, one of the main components here is carbon. So one good guess on this would be organic chemistry, because it is specifically looking at a carbon-based type of compound. And this would definitely be applied, by the way, all of these would be applied chemistry because they're all directed towards a specific goal. Next, testing water samples to determine concentrations of pollutants. So we're looking for pollutants in water, and we're basically going to be analyzing the samples to look at the levels of different things. So this would be a good example of analytical chemistry. We didn't talk about it, but there's actually a whole branch that would use this would be environmental chemistry. But based on the ones that we went over, this would be definitely analytical because we're analyzing. And we don't know if the pollutants contain carbon or not, so I wouldn't jump on a organic or inorganic thing here. And then studying the effects of hormones on the growth and development of commercial poultry, which is chickens. So we're looking at hormones and how they affect growth and development. This is living things. So the best one here, I think, would be biochemistry. Again, there are other branches and subdivisions that we could look at, but based on what we discussed. Technically, hormones are carbon-based compounds as well, but I think that the best fit here, based on the keywords, would be biochemistry. And if we test you on this, like if it was a free response, we would definitely accept different answers if you could defend it. You know, if you explained, well, I chose biochemistry because it had to do with living things. Or if somebody else said, oh, well, I chose organic because I know that hormones are carbon-based compounds, I would accept that because technically, again, a lot of these sort of overlap, and there's even more branches we didn't discuss. All right, so that's it for our branches of chemistry and our introduction to chemistry. In our next lecture, we're going to jump into scientific method and talk a little bit about developing hypotheses, experiments, proper graphing techniques, and drawing conclusions.